Thank you. That's us sort of confidential now, members, and back into open business. And we've done a recap there. We had a discussion in confidential about sensitive natures to in relation to the application. But back in open business now, we've, would anybody have any views like to bring in about how we progress this matter in relation to an application? Any members?
Chair.
Right, go ahead, Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, Chair, might I suggest that we defer this for a site visit for members to actually personally go and have a look at the setup as it is, and bearing in mind that there might have been an idea that we could have gone to this again tomorrow, but we can't have all of the representatives that we need to speak to on the meeting tomorrow. So I think the only option available to us now is to defer this for the next sitting of the planning committee next month, Chair. So I'm going to propose that we do that.
Thank you for that proposal, Councillor Boyd. Would anybody care to second that proposal? Councillor Gallagher, thank you. I think everybody is in general agreement on it. So members, on that application, we're going to adjourn for a site visit, and then hopefully it'll be brought back onto next month's list. On that basis, it's 4:30. Can we take 5 minutes for a comfort break and then come back at 4:15, members? If that's okay. Thank you.
En je think the fucking language told him.
Laura's going to do that. Thank you, Laura. Cheers.
Application LA11 2022-07850. It's an application for a farm dwelling and domestic garage. The site's located 60 metres southeast of 42 Carrickatane Road, Dunnamana, and the recommendation is to refuse. So this is the site location plan and an aerial image of the application site. It's located in the northern roadside part of a larger agricultural field on the southern side of Carrickatane Road at the junction with Stowell and Bigwood Road. It's located in a rural area and it's approximately 3 kilometres north of Dunnamana within the countryside as defined by the Strabane area plan. Here we have some images of the application site. The land within the field gently slopes away from the road in a southerly direction, and you can see there's an adjacent dwelling here in the bottom image, which sits slightly below the application site. This is a policy context under which we've assessed the application, including the RDS, the Strabane Area Plan, the SPPS, and Plan Policy Statements 2, 3, and 21. In terms of the consultations, none of the consultees had any objections to the plan and application, proposed standard conditions, and have provided advice. So the application is for a farm dwelling, so it's assessed under policy CTY 10 of PPS 21. In terms of policy CTY 10, there are a number of different criteria. In terms of part A, the farm business is currently active and has been established for 6 years, and this has been confirmed through consultation with DERA. Officers have carried out an assessment and have concluded that no dwellings or development opportunities have been sold off from the farm holding within the past 10 years. So the proposal complies with Part B of Policy CTY 10. So Part C of Policy CTY 10 requires that the new building is visually linked or sited to cluster with an established group of buildings on the farm. So as you can see from the site location plan and the aerial image below, there are no buildings on the farm in the immediate vicinity of the application site. Those buildings there on the opposite side of the road aren't within the farm and aren't associated with the farm. So the agent and the planning application has identified 2 farm buildings which they consider that the proposal is cited to visually link or cluster with. Just in terms of those buildings, the eastern structure is a remnant of an old gable wall, which officers don't consider to be a building. You can see it there just in the image and at the bottom of the screen, then it's identified again up here. The applicant, so therefore, only has 1 shed at this location, which isn't considered to be an established group of buildings. Just to point out that the other buildings here and these images are not part of the farm holding. They're not associated with the farm. So just in terms of that single farm shed, you can see here in the aerial image, it's located 120 metres from the application site, and it's considered that the dwelling on the application site wouldn't cluster or visually link with this building. So we've carried out an assessment in terms of visual linkage from the surrounding road network. So the farm shed's only visible from Stowell Road. However, a dwelling on the site won't be visible from this vantage point or visually linked with the farm shed. A dwelling on the northern part of the site is visible from Carrickatane and Stowell Roads. However, the farm shed wouldn't be visible from these vantage points. So you can see that there, in the images just on this slide. They're also available in the planning report. Again, that's just some more long-range views towards the application site. And as you can see, again, there's no connection with the application site and that single building on the farm. So there, just in terms of that, again, just to go back to Part C of Policy CTY10, the proposed site, a building on that site wouldn't visually link or isn't sited to cluster with a group of buildings on the farm. Whilst there is one building there, it's not considered to be a group of buildings. And just in terms of all images there that we've shown, it doesn't visually link or cluster with that building. So therefore the proposal isn't considered acceptable in that respect. But policy CTY10 goes on to allow consideration of an alternative site, provided there are no sites available at the group of buildings and where there are either demonstrable health and safety reasons or plans to expand the business at the existing group. So the applicant hasn't identified any other groups of buildings on the farm or demonstrated that there are no sites available. And there have been no expansion proposals or health and safety reasons put forward to demonstrate that for a siting at that location. So therefore the proposal is considered contrary to that part of CTY10 as well. Just in terms of the other policies within PPS 21, dwelling would be located in the northern half of the site, would benefit from boundary hedgerows and trees along the boundaries, and the proposal wouldn't create a rapid development or result in a suburban style build-up of development. So therefore the proposal complies with CTY 1314 and 8 of PPS 21 in that regard. In terms of all our policy considerations, there will be sufficient separation distance in terms of any neighbouring properties to reduce any potential impacts on amenity. A noise impact assessment was received as there's a car repair business opposite the application site. So environmental health have considered this and they don't have any objections following the submission of that assessment, and they proposed some recommendations in terms of glazing. There's a one as well within proximity of the site, but environmental health are content that it's within the limits and it wouldn't be adversely affected. There's farm buildings again up on the other side of Carrigatane Road, but sufficient separation distance can be provided. And again, just there's potential for contaminated land and environmental health of proposed conditions in that regard, which are standard. In terms of PPS 3, DFI roads have no objections and visibility displays can be provided. In terms of natural heritage, there was sycamore trees on the site which were assessed of having no obvious bat roosting features. The ecologist just recommended a bat survey if any of these trees are to be removed. However, these aren't proposed to be affected by the proposal and can be retained. There are no priority habitats recorded in the area, and hedgerow removal is minimal to provide visibility displays, so advice can be provided in that respect. Therefore, the proposal complies with PPS 2. So just to summarise, the proposal doesn't meet any of the cases in which an individual dwelling house would be permitted on the countryside, and there are no overriding reasons why it's essential in the rural location. The proposed dwelling is not visually linked or sited to cluster with an established group of buildings on the farm. Just to note that no letters of objections or support have been received in this application. However, refusal is recommended for the reasons which are set out in the planning report in the slide in front of members. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We've one speaker online. That's Joe McCormick. Joe, do you want to come on there now? You've heard Laura's presentation. You've got 5 minutes as usual. Go ahead, Joe. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members, thank you very much. Farm dwelling at 60 metres southeast of 42 Carrigatane Road, Dunnamana for DC and JR Fleming. Reasons to approve. Habitats regulation appraisal. When the planning department received the application for a farm dwelling, they demanded a report in relation to bats, badgers, birds, etc. be provided, and my client obliged. This report was submitted and the Shared Environmental Service have now concluded that this project would not have an adverse effect on the integrity of any European site. Consultee responses. The Planning Department consulted the following, among others, regarding the application: Department of Agriculture, Northern Ireland Water, Environmental Health, DFI Roads, Environmental Health Agency, and Defence Infrastructure Organisation Land Management Services. All of these departments came back to say that they had no objections to the proposal for a replacement dwelling on the site chosen, with the exception of the Environmental Health Agency, who stated there could be noise from a nearby car repair workshop. We asked an acoustic engineer to assess the site and repair workshop, and his conclusion was, and the full report was submitted to the Planning Department. The proposed development has been considered in terms of the potential impact of sound from sound sources in the immediate area and environmental sound in the area. The site is subject to agricultural sounds in the area. No specific commercial sounds were noted. The predictions assume a brick-built construction with cavity wall, double glazing, and a minimum ridge height value of 3.6 decibels is required. Proposal analysis indicates that sound impact places the proposed development in the no adverse effect category. Subject to suggested mitigations, the following can be stated. Compliance with the WHO guidelines is achieved externally and internally. Compliance with the BS 8233 is achieved, and BS 4142 is not applicable in this case due to the absence of commercial activity and sounds. Therefore, the site can meet planning requirements in respect of sound impact, and there is no planning impediment in respect of sound impact. 3. Representations. No letters of objection were received from any member of the public, which indicates to me that they are acceptable to the proposal. 4. Reasons to approve. The Planning Department have recommended refusal because they say the site is not close enough to the farm buildings. But the site is on the farm, which DERA have confirmed. The farm business number ID was allocated on the 15th of May 2005, and that the business has claimed payments in each of the last 6 years. It is therefore considered that the farm business is active and established at least 6 years in accordance with the criteria of CTY 10. No dwellings or development opportunities have been disposed of from the farm holding in the last 10 years in accordance with criteria B of CTY 10. This application is for a dwelling for the farmer's son who intends to marry in the near future. He will live on and run this farm in Dunamana, whilst his parents will remain on the Newton Stewart farm. He intends to develop it into a modern-day farm, which will mean building new sheds, silos, slurry pits. As is well known, farmyards are very dangerous places for children, so the applicant's father and grandfather want the proposed dwelling to be close to the farmyard but far enough away to create a safe environment for the young children. The Planning Department agree that there are very few views of the proposed site from surrounding roads, and due to landform, the site is on the lower part of the field, which first rises and then falls away from the dwelling. The site and surrounding buildings also create an excellent backdrop for a dwelling on this site. There are no other buildings on the farm, so the farmer needs to have a dwelling to live in, and then he will erect buildings to establish himself in the farm business. It is not proposed to remove any of the 4 sycamore trees which are just off the western boundary of the site. 5. Reasons for refusal. We contest both reasons for refusal. Number 1, the proposed dwelling is essential in this location due to the fact that the farm has been confirmed by DERA as being active and established in accordance with the criteria A of CTY 10. No dwellings have been sold off in the last 10 years. The new building would be visually linked with the farmyard buildings. Health and safety reasons require the proposed dwelling to be far enough away from the farmyard to be safe for children. The proposal meets requirements of CTY 13 A to G. The proposed dwelling will meet the requirements of CTY 14. A septic tank will be provided to meet consent to discharge requirements, which will satisfy CTY 16. Number 2, the proposal meets strategic planning statement and
Excuse me,
policies.
Mr. McCormick, your 5 minutes are up.
I'm just about to finish, and that it
Go
is
ahead, Joe,
visually
if you finish off there. Thanks, Anson.
visually linked to a cluster with an established group of buildings and will be safe for children on the farm. 6, conclusion. The above shows that the applicant has not been properly appraised, and the applicant asks that approval be granted for a replacement dwelling on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for your presentation. I'm going to ask if any members have any questions for you. Going around. Alderman Hussey, go ahead there.
Thanks, and thanks again, Joe.
Okay.
Interesting application, and seems to hinge on one aspect, and that, I suppose, is linkage. Can you elaborate further as to why perhaps a proposed dwelling could not be closer to the farmyard?
Yeah, Joe.
Yes, the applicants are very aware of health and safety issues on farms and would prefer their dwelling to be further away from the farmyard. Also, the site chosen was because it could hardly be seen from surrounding roads. And if moved closer to the farmyard would be more exposed, and dwellings could be easily seen. It's just, I thought this would be a good site because it is in close proximity to other buildings, dwellings, farm buildings at the top of the road, at the Carricane Road. Whereas if it was built down at the bottom, it would be unsafe for the children, but it would also be more easily seen from a distance. And we feel that this is the best place for a dwelling.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. I'm going to bring in Alderman Kerrigan. He wants to ask you a question. Thank you. Keith?
Sorry, Chair, the WebEx there, I'm just not playing up on me, or I'm just not as able as I was. Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Thank you, Joe, for speaking here on this application. Main difficulty that I see with this application, it just seems to be the problem here, and you can highlight it here, Joe, if this is the case here. This is an outlying farm of Fleming's farm business, and as I say, we have ticked the boxes in regards to CTY 10, in regards to the farm business being active, and in regard A and B. And difficulty is that it's like many farmers have. This is an outlying farm which was predominantly used for maybe growing silage or for livestock, but it's not necessarily. There's a lack of buildings on it, and that just seems to be the issue in this regard, Joe. Whereby you've made comments there. In regards to farm expansion, which is planned. And I know that as a point that's raised on CTY 10. And I mean, that just touching on that, looking your thoughts then on the lack of buildings currently on this existing outlying farm. And that's the only reason, in my view, I'm just wondering, is that your view on it, that this application has not been up for approval? And following to that, you have touched on farm expansion, and that would incur significant cost in regards to the structures that you've mentioned, in regards to slurry storage, and in regards to silage pits and kettle housing and all the rest. So just if you could elaborate on that. Thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Go ahead, Joe.
This farm was purchased maybe 20 years ago, and the people who owned the farm previously decided to keep the farmhouse and the farm buildings. They are positioned to the southeast of the site. So when they sold the farm, they didn't sell the buildings. So it's now up to the farmers to establish these sheds and whatnot. The farmer's son has now come of age that he wants his own house, he wants his own farm, and this is going to be transferred to him solely. So they couldn't have put the proposed building or proposed sheds, anywhere else on the farm except where we have indicated. And the original buildings, farm buildings, were all retained by the farmer who sold the rest of the fields and whatnot to the applicant. So he didn't have a choice really. He couldn't build or renovate or do anything with the buildings because they weren't his.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Going to move on here now. I don't see anybody else indicating to ask any questions, Joe. So I'm going to move on to questions for the officer.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions for Laura? No questions for Laura. So members, over to you. There's a recommendation for refusal in relation to this application. So can
Chair.
Yes, Alderman Kerrigan, go ahead there.
Apologies, my WebEx there is playing up. I was trying to type in, Chair, that I could ask a question to Laura. I apologize about that, but I can put forward a proposal if you want, or can ask Laura the question. It's up to you, Chair.
No, I think to be fair, we're having problems with WebEx all day, so I'll hold off and you can ask Laura a question. Keith, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was merely just really a follow on from what I'd asked Joe. Is the only issue there, Laura, in regards to this, that there are no actual farm buildings? I mean, I do note on there, you have noted on the pictures there, the images, sorry, on the application, that they're not part of this farm business. You know those buildings which were highlighted, and how does that work for the like of? There are many farms out there that farm businesses which have purchased additional farmlands, and it's just been the land, as Joe has highlighted there. The dwelling house and maybe some shades and maybe a couple of fields have been kept by the person that has sold the ground, but the majority of the ground then it's an outlying farm and farm business that's expanded, but there's no structures or no buildings on that. And oftentimes it is the case, and this is an example which Joe was raising, whereby the son and this here is seeking to put in an additional dwelling and live on this outlying farm, just to keep an eye on things. It's easier if there's livestock here or whatever. And have we no scope or no manoeuvring here in this policy in regards to that, or do they have to turn around and build a couple of shades first? So it's just trying to get that. Is this the only reason because we don't have existing farm buildings on this? Well, not the only reason. Is this the main reason here that this has been refused, because there's not existing buildings on the farm dwelling? Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Laura.
All right, Keith, thank you. Laura, do you want to see if you can answer that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, so one of the three criteria of CTY10 is that the new dwelling is visually linked or sited to cluster with an established group of buildings on the farm. So those buildings which are outside of the farm holding cannot be considered to be an established group of buildings on the farm. And as outlined in the report and the presentation, there is only one building on this part of the agricultural holding. In terms of any other buildings being provided at this part of the holding, we do receive applications for outlying farms where farmers have applied for sheds at those farms for different reasons, and they can do that under planning policy as long as similar criteria. If they're active and established farmer, and if we have all that information and they demonstrate a need for the building at that location. So there is a way, I suppose, that the farm business could apply to build an additional shed or whatever at this location. So then that there would be a group of buildings on the farm. But in terms of CTY10, it's very clear that the dwelling has to be sited to visually link with a group of buildings on the farm, and that's on the farm holding, regardless of the other buildings that are located around it. They're not part of the current holding.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Chair. It's just that scenario that for the like of a rural application, they not only have to apply for a dwelling house, they have to apply to erect shades as well, an additional cost.
Okay, Keith, that's grand. I don't see any other members indicating to ask any questions of Laura, so I'm going to proceed on now to the termination stage. As you know, members, there's a recommendation to refuse. Welcome any proposals to come forward. Thank you.
Chair, if there's no one else,
Yes, Keith, go ahead there. Again, Keith, you'll see there's two reasons. If you could maybe just outline
Yeah.
them on both reasons. Thank you. Now.
I will. Sorry, Chair. I believe the first reason is it's no overriding reason. CTY1, PPS 21. And again, I feel that on a previous application, it is the Staban area plan 123.2.1, the rural remainder. And I feel, as I had read it out previously, I think it in regards to a less restrictive policy in the rural area. So I feel that deals with the first refusal reason. In regards to the second refusal reason, contrary to CTY 10 and CTY 13 of PPS 21, but not visually linked or sited to cluster with an established group of bulbs on the farm. Admittedly, yes, there is not an established group of bulbs on the farm. However, I do note that it does adhere to CTY 10 in regards to point A, farm business is active for at least 6 years. CTY 10 point B, no dwellings.
Keith, sorry for cutting
opportunities
across you, but you might have to go back to the start for your number two reasons because you cut out there. We got number one, the Staban area plan, rural remainder, but
Right.
would you kindly go back to number two again if you can and just give us the
Yeah,
reasons
yeah.
because you did cut out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hadn't got full on number two completed, but yeah, number two, in regards to the second refusal reason, CTY 10 and CTY 13 of PPS 21, not visually linked or cited in a cluster, I'm minded that the policy does adhere to points A and B, and I feel that it can be of CTY 10, and that there's no development opportunity sold off and the farm business is active for at least 6 years. It does allow point C of CTY 10 that it is all right, that it on health and safety reasons which haven't been emphasised, but there are plans which Mr. McCormick has referenced in regards to farm expansion. So I feel that they have been raised by the agent there, and I'm assuming the agent will at some stage be putting forward these plans and applications for additional housing and additional livestock housing, machinery housing, slurry storage there. So there are plans that are being put forward, and again, it references there that can be adhered to if we also meet the requirements of CTY 13 and CTY 14 and 16. I feel that it does meet 16 in regards to the septic tank, sewerage, sorry. And in regards to the rural character, I feel that it won't add into any ribbon of development. Apologies, Chair. We'll knock that off, sorry. And in regards to CTY 13, I do feel that at least the points A to F, it does tick these boxes. It is not prominent feature in the landscape. The site does, there is established boundaries there on two sides of it there, and it relies, apologies, Chair. It relies preliminary, it doesn't rely on this landscape, and I feel that as consolidation in regards to the site that has been selected there at the T junction. I feel that other sites would be unduly prominent in the skyline, and I feel that this site is an appropriate one. I don't feel that it will have a detrimental impact adding a single dwelling into the existing cluster at the junction. But I do feel that it ticks all of the boxes on CTY 13 A to F with the exclusion of G, which is applicable. And that's in regards to CTY 10 that verifiable plans to expand the farm business at the existing site have been emphasised by the agent. So on those grounds, I would be minded to propose that we do not accept the officer's recommendation to refuse, and we grant permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kerrigan, for that an extensive proposal. Would anybody like to?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Hussey. That's been seconded. So on that basis, we have a proposal from Alderman Kerrigan to not accept the officer's recommendation, and it's been seconded by Alderman Hussey. So, Mark, can you go to vote? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Item 4, members' proposal not to accept the officer's recommendation. Alderman Derek Hussey.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For, Maura.
Thank you. Alderman McMorris is apologies. Councillor Jason Barr is also apologies. Councillor John Boyle.
Or
Thank you. Councillor Sean Fleming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher. Thank you. Councillor Christopher Jackson. Thank you. Councillor Leonard. Virgil Leonard, thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade's apologies. Councillor Rory McHugh. Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney. Thank you. Councillor Patrick Murphy. Thank you. And Councillor Grace O'Neillis. Thank you. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, Norma. Thank you, members. That's unanimous. So thank you, Joe, for attending as well. I'm going to move on now to our next application. Next application is item number 5, LA 11, 2023-1758/F. Change of use from dwelling to HMO, number 9, Munster Terrace, Derry, and that's recommendation to approve. Malgy's taking that. Thank you, Malgy.
Sorry, Chair, just bear with me 2 seconds to get the display for us. Thank you.
Hello, current design.
Yep.
Sorry, Chair, sorry, members. This is item 5, LA 11, 2023-1758. It's a full application for a change of use from dwelling to HMO, a house of multiple occupancy, and it's located at 9 Windsor Terrace, and the recommendation is to approve. The application site is outlined in red, and the attached OS map is number 9. Windsor Terrace is an existing 2.5-storey mid-terrace property. It's located within an area, the central area as defined in the Derry area plan. It's also located within the Clarence Street conservation area. The Windsor Terrace is located on the Infirmary Road, which there's a number of other uses in the locality, including the cathedral opposite the site. So this is to give you an idea of the existing elevation of the property. There's no changes proposed in the elevation. And here's the drawings submitted by the agent to confirm that. So the existing floor plans is a residential property with a lounge and kitchen at ground floor and an additional bedroom at ground floor with bedrooms and toilet facilities at first floor and bedrooms at second floor. The proposed plan is they retain the existing lounge area and kitchen area with a bedroom at ground floor, then ensuite bedrooms at first floor and ensuite bedrooms at the second floor. In terms of the policy context, the policy context is set out within the case officer report. As there's no dedicated policy for HMOs either in the local development plan or regional development policy. So we rely on the SPPS in terms of assessing character and the other retained policies in relation to parking and the Derry area plan in relation to design, character and parking. So this is just a continuation of the policy context and also have to consider PPS 6 in terms of the conservation area. We did consult a number of bodies in relation to the application, including DFA Roads and Environmental Health. DFA Roads outline the parking standards for a property of this nature. And they would say it's normally 4 car parking spaces would be required. Environmental Health have no objections, and they've provided standard information in relation to HMO licensing, transmission of sound, etc. There have been 10 objections from 6 individuals in a petition, And there's also been a letter of support received from Ulster University. The objections have been outlined and considered in detail in the report. But in summary, they raise issues in relation to density, parking, pollution, impact on the character of the area, rubbish, amenity, policy considerations within the area plan in terms of flat policy areas, and justification for HMOs, and intensification, and the precedent of HMOs are allowed in the locality. As stated before, the application sites within the central area in Derry, there is a proposal within the central area that there's a potential of residential stock. So there's an accompanying map in the Derry area plan which identifies those areas. Ones are terraces in that locality, but officers are of the opinion that this proposal won't offend that proposal on the grounds that the HMO use would be still considered a residential use. In terms of residential amenity, the occupiers of the HMO have been considered. There is a small yard, which is is typical of these terrace properties and Windsor Terrace, and that will remain within it, and things like your bins, etc., will be stored within the rear yard. It's also noted that the properties in walking distance to existing open spaces such as Brook Park. The HMO itself will have shared kitchen facilities. As noted, they do have ensuite bathrooms for each of the bedrooms. And so in terms of the amenity of the occupiers, officers are satisfied that the proposal meets the requirements. In terms of impact on nearby properties, the main areas for concern from such a use are potential noise disturbance and impacts on privacy. As I said, there's no operational development proposed, there's no extensions or no alterations or no additional windows. So as such, there is no impacts in terms of overlooking or privacy arising from any amendments in the application. In terms of noise disturbance, there's informatives provided by Environmental Health Department, and given it as a HM will be subject to a licensing regime. As such, if there's any issues with noise, that they can be reported through EHD via the licensing programme. Therefore, having considered the nature of the proposal, officers are of the opinion that will not adversely affect the amenity of nearby residents. In terms of the character of the area, the Windsor Terrace itself is primarily residential. There has been no authorised HMOs approved on Windsor Terrace, although the applicant has provided evidence that the property before you did have a licence from Northern Ireland Housing Executive to operate as a HMO for a period of 4 years. In terms of other uses in the locality, you have the cathedral and the associated buildings immediately to the south of the application site. You have educational uses at St Eugene's Primary School. We've recently approved a change of use from a formal educational use to a flat sort of apartment development immediately to the rear of the site. And then there's some small scale commercial uses at the bottom of Craig and Hill. So look, it's fair to say that there's a mixture of uses, and we take into account Brook Park as well as very nearby. So officers' opinion that the change of use of one single family occupied property, HMO, won't have a significant impact on the character of the area. In terms of parking provision, policy TR5 of the area plan indicates that the site is within the central area, therefore it's within Zone B. So within Zone B, both operational and non-operational curbing required as determined by the council. So we can take into account issues such as the nature of the development, where it's located, etc. So the site is located centrally within walking distance of the main town centre, city centre, and it's also within walking distance of all our amenities. We note that DFA roads have said that there's a car park requirement of 4 spaces. The agent in response to that has also submitted a parking survey and has indicated that there's spaces available generally in the area. There's 1 additional bedroom. Officers are of the opinion that the 5 bedrooms proposed could accommodate up to 4 or 5 adults. And given the ability to change rooms within the existing property for additional bedrooms, we're of opinion that there isn't actual a creation of additional demand for parking. So having considered all these factors and taken into account, we're concluded that the proposal complies with policy AMP 7 and TR5 of the area plan. As the site is located within the Clarence Street Conservation Area, we've taken into account PPS 6 and the relevant policies within the area plan relating to the conservation area, as well as the design guide. There are no alterations externally to the property. The scale, form and materials are unaltered. The proposed use will not have any negative impact on terms of the conservation area. So in conclusion, officers are satisfied that it meets all the relevant policy criteria relating to conservation areas. There is no issues given the nature of development in relation to natural heritage. Northern Ireland housing executive standards have been met, although they're not policy. It's useful to note that they've been met. And suppose in conclusion, officers have considered all the relevant material planning considerations, including the policy context, the character of the area, the history of the area, as well as the representations both in support and against the application, and are recommending that the application is approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malachy, for the presentation. I'm going to move on to the agent for the applicant, Mr. Ali Alfert. If Ali's online there.
Yeah, can you hear me there, Chair?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ali. You've got 5 minutes if you'd like to present now to the committee, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and afternoon, councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak at today's meeting and support the case officer's recommendation to approve the application. Rather than repeating what has already been stated in the case officer's report, I'd like to highlight some additional information around issues of parking, protection of existing housing, residential amenity, and the need for HMO in the city. Property sits within the central area plan. In this location, it's accepted that there are relaxations of parking requirements given the proximity to places of work, study, transport links, shops, and open spaces. This is highlighted by the fact that similar applications we've submitted within the central area plan were approved without the need for parking surveys being carried out. Those applications also relied solely on on-street parking. Due to the objections received, the applicants took it upon themselves to carry out the parking survey to ensure compliance with road service suggested number of 4 additional spaces, despite an increase of only 1 bedroom in the property. The surveys carried out on 2 separate days show availability of 47 and 51 spaces within a 2-minute walk of the property. It has been suggested that the property has the potential to house as many as 12 people, causing further strain on parking. This is simply not the case, as HMO licensing requirements would not allow for this, given the size of the bedrooms. The property has in fact been designed in line with HMO licensing requirements for 6 people to live in. As already pointed out by the case officer, an HMO is a single unit of accommodation with people living together and sharing facilities. Objections in relation to the property sitting outside of the flat zone are therefore irrelevant. Setting aside that we have shown a history of HMO use at this address, I am also of the strong belief that HMO properties can help alleviate the pressures on local housing. For example, this property will house 6 individuals. Without the provision of HMO accommodation, those individuals would occupy 6 separate units, causing much greater strain on the local housing market. HMO, when developed in a controlled manner alongside single-family homes, can therefore help ease the demand for housing. The Derry Area Plan at present has no definition on a maximum number of HMOs in a certain area. However, the conversion of one property on the street, which has a history of use as an HMO, would seem reasonable. HMO is one of the most heavily regulated forms of housing. Owners must gain planning approval and then apply for a license from the NI HMO office. This license is then issued by Derry Strabane Council and must be renewed every 5 years. Owners must complete a fit and proper person evaluation and show compliance with everything from fire regulations, size of rooms, bathrooms, size of kitchen, waste collection, and much more. As part of the licensing process, they must also submit an antisocial behaviour policy. Preventative measures such as noise monitoring devices and Ring doorbell systems can be used to help with this issue. The property at Windsor Terrace is approximately half a mile from the university. It is now well documented that the university is experiencing significant growth and is struggling to meet the demand for rooms, with figures of between 500 and 700 rooms needed. This is also shown by their letter of support for this application and commitment to work with private developers to provide quality accommodation for their students. Whilst I'm sure there are plans for more purpose-built student accommodation, in every other major city in the UK and Ireland, HMO provides a vital role for housing the student population. HMO also provides accommodation for young professionals who may have just graduated or are relocating to the city. Often roles such as locum doctors, junior doctors and nurses are on initial 6-month contracts, and the people can be moving at short notice. HMO allows a seamless transition for these people, giving them a foothold in the city. To summarise, HMO, when developed in a controlled manner and properly regulated with licensing, is a vital part of the housing market for any city with ambition to grow. And thanks for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ollie, for your presentation. I'm going to pass over to members to see if there's any questions for you. Many members, any questions for Mr. Alford? Oh, I don't see anybody looking to come in online or on the floor. So I'm going to move on now to questions for the officer. So if anybody has any questions for Malachi, can they please come forward now? Okay, members, no questions for either Mr. Alford or Malachi. There is a proposal on the floor there, and the recommendation is to approve. So if anybody would like to come forward now, any proposals, welcome them. Mr. Jackson, thank you.
Good Chair. I know this area very well, and very conscious that despite what's been said by the agent, there are quite significant parking pressures, and I know this committee have rejected HMOs on the basis of access, movement, and parking in that vicinity. But when you do look at there are opportunities for on-street parking, but the road is quite wide. I do feel that it's although we've raised concerns around other property in the same vicinity, this site, in my view, could potentially facilitate the HMO, and I have to admit there are slight concerns in relation to it, but I find myself agreeing with a lot of what the officers have presented in the report. I know we can't have a carte blanche approach in relation to the central area and completely dismiss residents' concerns in relation to parking, but there are good transport links. It is very close to the city centre, and you know, I suppose most importantly, the road isn't very narrow. There is less chance of blockages and obstructions being caused by due to parking pressures. So with all that taken into consideration, I'm content to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, for that proposal. Does anybody wish to second that proposal on behalf of Councillor Unitas? Thank you. Okay, members, Councillor Jackson has proposed that we accept the officer's recommendation. That was duly seconded by Councillor Unitas. So, Maura, would you like to take it to the vote, please? Thank you.
Okay, members, this is item 5 and it's a proposal to accept the officer's recommendation. Alderman Derek Hussey.
For.
Okay, Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For.
Okay. Alderman McMorris's apologies. Councillor Jason Barr is also apologies. Councillor Boyle.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Fleming. Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher has left. Councillor Christopher Jackson. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard. Okay. Councillor Catherine McDade is apologies. Councillor Rory McHugh. Councillor McHugh, are you still there?
Yeah, for.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney. Thank you. Councillor Patrick Murphy. Thank you. And Councillor Grace O'Neillis. Thank you. It's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, Maura. Thank you, members. That's passed. So moving on to our next application, which I understand is number 6 on our list. And that is LA 11 2022-0590, proposed conversion and reuse of traditional barn outbuilding to a single dwelling at 8 Irvie Road, Derry, and the recommendation is to refuse. And Laura is taking this, I think. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, application LA 11 2022-0590 is an application for the conversion and reuse of traditional barn / outbuilding to a single dwelling, and the site's located 45 metres southeast of number 8 Irvie Road, Cross, and it's Derry. The recommendation is to refuse. So this is the application site as indicated in the site location plan and an aerial image which also shows the site. It's a roadside plot on the northern side of Irvie Road. It's located in the rural area as defined in the Derry area plan. And this is the immediate area is characterised by established and new single dwellings and farm holdings. This images of the application site. This one taken from the roadside and this from the rear of the site looking out towards the road. It's a fairly level site. It contains the remnants of 2 agricultural buildings. There's a stone shed or barn, which you can see here is gable-ended to the road. And then there's a more modern block building located further back in the site. At a right angle to that stone shed. Both buildings, as you can see, are in a state of disrepair. The larger building has no roof, was the smaller building just with a partial roof intact. There seems to be a gravel surface surrounding the buildings, but on the day of the site visit, this was quite overgrown. In terms of the policy context, it's the Regional Development Strategy, the Derry Area Plan, the SPPS, PPSs 2, 3, 6, 15 and 21. In terms of consultation responses, there were no objections from any of the consultees, and standard conditions and advice were proposed, which could be conditioned on any approval if it was granted. In this application, there have been 3 letters of objection, and there have been 2 letters of support received in respect to the proposal. These are outlined in the planning report and considered in detail in that. So as this proposal is for the conversion and reuse of a building, policy CTY4 and the SPPS are relevant. So policy CTY4 states the plan permission will be granted for the sympathetic conversion with adaptation, if necessary, of a suitable building for a variety of uses. However, the SPPS is more prescriptive and specifies that it must be a suitable locally important building of special character or interest. And it also goes on to identify these buildings such as schoolhouses, churches, or older traditional barns and outbuildings. So the SPPS therefore takes precedence in assessing this planning application. So as you can see from the images, this is a nondescript building which is currently in a state of disrepair, and there is some block work there, so you can see that it has been modernised throughout the years. It's not considered to be of special character or interest as required by the SPPS. It's located centrally within the site and it isn't immediately obvious when passing the site, given its location and positioning gable-ended to the road. A programme of works was submitted with the application, which outlined that this may have been a fowl house or shed as part of a group of buildings which were located here and were known as Hervey House. However, there are none of those buildings evident on the application site. It's considered that the building therefore fails to make a valid contribution to its setting, and therefore in principle the conversion or change of use of this building isn't acceptable, and as such it's contrary to policy CTY4 and the SPPS, and it's not considered acceptable in principle. Whilst it's stated that the SPPS is the main policy under which this proposal is assessed, we have also, as you can see in the planning report, continued an assessment of it under policy CTY4. In that respect, we can see that the building is a permanent construction, so part A of that's complied with. In terms of part B, the conversion of this building, which subject to a modest design, wouldn't be considered to have an adverse impact on the visual amenity or character of the area. This is an outline application, so there was no specific details received. However, there were some kind of initial designs, so we've assessed it based on that. So therefore we consider that it complies with Part B and CTY 13 and 14 of the SPPS. In terms of amenity, there's sufficient separation distance to the nearest dwelling, and if a detailed design was received at a further stage, this could be considered further. Part E doesn't apply to this, and just then in terms of sewage, it will be disposed of by a septic tank, which complies with Part F of CTY 4 and policy CTY 16 of PPS 21. So policy CTY 4 also requires consideration of the access to the site. This is also considered under PPS 3. So the proposal intends to use existing agricultural access to the site. However, the applicant is unable to provide the full visibility displays as they're unable to gain control over the land required. The agent provided a traffic survey, so DFI Roads considered that, and they considered it to be robust, and they accepted the results of that survey. Initially, DFI Roads had advised the visibility displays of 2.4 by 73 were required. So the DCAN, which DCAN permits a reduction in displays where it's been demonstrated that there are special circumstances and the danger to road users is not likely to be caused. So having reviewed the traffic survey, DFI Roads advised that displays should be 65 metres, and that the existence should be 2, which would provide a safe access onto onto Hervey Road. So the bracketed figure for that is 39 metres, which means it's a minimum that would be accepted, but the agent has provided 43 metres, which the DFI Roads have advised that is in the public verge and doesn't require any third-party lands. So the traffic survey demonstrates that the speed on the road is 34.2 miles per hour and there's an average of 15 vehicles per hour on the road. It also provided road traffic collision data and for 7 years there from 2013 to 2020 and there were no collisions recorded as happening. Also, the agent had pointed out in their supporting information that the visibility displays for the adjoining property would be kept clear as part of access arrangements for the application site, therefore improving display of that property also. So overall, having considered the traffic survey and all the information submitted, it's not considered that the proposal would prejudice road safety and as such it complies with CTY4 and PPS3 in that respect. So during the processing of the planning application, the agent submitted some further information in terms of policy CTY6 PPS 21, which is personal and domestic circumstances. And in order to demonstrate a need for a dwelling at this location. So CTY6 permits a dwelling on the countryside to meet the long-term needs of the applicant where there are compelling and site-specific reasons related to the applicant's personal or domestic circumstances and provided they can provide satisfactory evidence that a new dwelling is necessary as a response to the particular circumstances of the case and that genuine hardship will be caused. And also that there are no alternative solutions to meet the particular circumstances of the case, such as an extension or that the conversion of another building of the property or any other type of conversion in their existing property couldn't be provided for. So a supporting statement submitted then during processing of the application outlines that the applicant's a carer for a friend who they currently reside together and looking after the long-term complex needs. We received a GP letter who confirmed a diagnosed condition and stated that a single-storey property near to the hospital would be beneficial for checks associated with the care. And that the support there is also a statement provided that there are relatives living in close proximity to the application site, so that support mechanism would be beneficial and lessen the hardship for the applicant there. But consider that information. It's appreciated that the applicant has a caring role, but it hasn't been demonstrated that there's a site-specific need at this location on every road, and that a new dwelling is a necessary response to meet the circumstances. We haven't received any other information to demonstrate that any other options have been fully explored, such as an extension to the existing property or a relocation to another location within the settlement of Derry or any other settlements in close proximity to the hospital. So having considered all that information, the proposal is considered contrary to criteria A and B of policy CTY6 of PPS 21. Again, then, so just in terms of all our policy considerations, in terms of PPS 2, the application site hydrologically connected to the SSI and SSC. It's not within a designated site. There's no works proposed to bring to the removal of any trees. The shed was assessed as having negligible bat risk potential, and surveys were provided. NED considered these and have no objections. The advice is provided in terms of any other protected species which may be used in the site, and the SES have carried out a HRA and they have no objections to the proposal. There's no areas of flood risk at the site, and given the nature of the proposal, a drainage assessment isn't required. So therefore, just overall, to summarise, it's considered that the building proposed to be converted isn't a locally important building of special character and interest. so it's not suitable for conversion. And again, just to reiterate that the SPPS takes precedence in considering of this. That in terms then of policy C2/6, the applicant, in the special circumstances, the applicant hasn't demonstrated there are site-specific reasons as to why a dwelling is necessary at this location, and that genuine hardship will be caused if planning permission refused, and no alternative solutions have been provided for. And the proposal does not meet any of the cases where an individual dwelling would be permitted in the countryside, and there's no overriding reasons why it would be essential at this rural location. So the recommendation of officers is to refuse for the refusal reasons set out here in the slide in front of you and also in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for that presentation. Members going to move on now to speakers. There's 3 speakers listed. There's Mr. Cahar Cook, who's the objector, Councillor Alex Duffy, who's asked to speak as well, and then the agent, Mr. John Corey. So I'm going to ask Mr. Cahar Cook to come online now. Mr. Cook, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook, our protocol is you've got 5 minutes to present to the committee. So if you want to take it away now, you have 5 minutes and welcome your presentation. Okay, Mr. Cook, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll give you a bit of a history about the family and about this site. The site used to belong to James Brown, who would be my granny's brother. He owned the surrounding farmland as well, and they got into a bit of financial difficulty. We're talking about 30 years ago. So my father and my granny came up with some finances to help them try and save the farm. But long story short, the farm was repossessed, and all was left was this little bit of the site here. So my father and my uncle, they arranged between themselves. My father says, I'll take the bit of land. Whenever you get yourself up and going again, you can give me back my money. You can take back the wee bit of the site. So that was grand for the next 20 years. And then the ownership changed from James Brown to Josephine Moore, which would be husband and wife. And then whenever it changed to Josephine, about 5 family members received solicitors' letters to stop using the land and get off the land and take everything off it, remove all possessions. So that created a bit of tension, I'm sure you're aware of, between the families. So following on from that, just reading through this report here, I see that the traffic survey states that there was no road traffic collisions from 2013 to 2020. But during that court case that I mentioned, Josephine used a piece of evidence which stated that there was an accident, a road traffic collision, where the vehicle actually crashed into the site that we're talking about and through the fence onto the site. So this here kind of painting a picture that this is a safe piece of the road, when in fact there has been an accident here before. Also looking at the traffic survey, I see that the average speeds 34 miles an hour, and they're reducing the visibility from the recommended 73 meters down to 43. But if you look at that report in detail, you'll see that on the 7th of August there was speeds recorded of 48.9, 43.7, 44.8, and 47.9. On the 8th of August there was 49, 44, 45, and 50. On the 9th of August there was a 50 mile an hour vehicle traveling on that road, and on the 10th a 47 and a 41. Now, I'm sure you are aware, a vehicle travelling at that speed, which has happened on 4 of the days out of the survey, with reduced visibility displays, is going to end on one result. So that's just basically everything I wanted to mention today. The final thing I would say is that I believe that Josephine isn't applying for the site for personal use, as for a carer. I believe it's for financial gain, and that the site will be sold once it's passed. But I haven't been chatting to any councillors or anything, and I just wanted to make everybody aware of the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook, for the presentation. If any members have any questions, Mr. Cook, come forward now. No, Mr. Cook, there's no questions from any of the members for you, Ellie. So if you want to just, thank you for your presentation, and we just wish to hear the rest of the application, that's fine. I'm going to move on now. I'm going to call on Councillor Duffy, Councillor Alex Duffy. Alex, you've got 5 minutes to present to the committee. Thank you. If you want to take a, go ahead now.
Good Chair, and thank you. I'm not a member of committee, as you know. So I've been closely involved in assisting the Mourne family who are currently grappling with complex needs, particularly due to Mr. Mourne's unfortunate battle with a rare incurable disease that requires frequent hospital admissions and appointments. The subject today revolves around Mr. Mourne's homestead, where he was born in 1946 on the Every Road. The site under consideration for potential conversion into a single dwelling. His proposed transformation carries a multiple of benefits, both for the applicant and the wider community. As Mr. Moore and his spouse navigate their twilight years, their heartfelt desire is to be closer to family members residing in the same road, the Slackmanis Road and at Eglinton, all conveniently located for their support needs. Currently residing in Feeney in rural Derry, they find themselves without the necessary support network. Granting this approval development would not only address the immediate needs of the Mourne family, but also fulfill a deeply emotional request. It is imperative that we afford our elderly residents the opportunity to spend their golden years in the comfort and embrace of family. Beyond the personal aspects, the historical significance of this site adds another layer of appeal to the proposed conversion, preserving and repurposing a structure with deep historical roots, once home to the Every House, holds substantial cultural and local importance. It contributes to the overall heritage of the area and fosters a sense of continuity with our past. In conclusion, I firmly believe that endorsing the conversion and reuse of the traditional barn building belonging to the Every House into a single dwelling is not just practical and compassionate decision for the Mourne family, but also a meaningful gesture to honour the historical importance of the site. I request its thorough consideration, ensuring that the applicants can relish their twilight years in the company of family while preserving a vital piece of our local history. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Due to our protocol, we can't have as many questions of members when they present to committees only. So thank you for your presentation. We'll move on now. I'm going to ask for Mr. John Corey. John is the agent for the applicant here. John, are you there?
Hey, Chair. Thanks.
That's great, John. John, you've got 5 minutes. You can take it away now. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Good afternoon, members of the committee and to council officers. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak in support of this proposed conversion application. As you know, PPS 21 policy CTY, it states that planning permission will be granted in the countryside for the conversion of non-residential buildings into a dwelling in accordance with policy CTY4. Now, both the strategic planning policy statement and the planning policy statement 21 explicitly encourage the sympathetic conversion of older traditional barns like this. The case officer report for this site agrees that our proposal meets all of the established criteria in CTY4 except for one. They allege that the building to be renovated isn't a locally important building of special character or interest. We would disagree with his assertion. The case officer planning report in relation to the proposal referred to the RV House group of buildings, and it erroneously states that notably none of these buildings remain. However, we have presented evidence to determine that this is factually incorrect. Evidence from our commissioned chartered archaeologist report and our analysis of historic maps confirms that this building is indeed a remnant of the historic grouping that we can see from the Ordnance Survey maps on the NIEA Built Heritage Viewer. The archaeologist stated this building was likely a fowl house associated with the old Irvie House. Importantly, HED, when they were consulted, accepted that this was a vernacular building The footprint of the old building matches identically the footprint of buildings visible in historic mapping from 1830. This evidence has all been previously presented to planning through the lifetime of the application, and given that HED did not dispute this, we now have an acknowledged historic building of vernacular style. Given that we have an accepted vernacular building proven to be at least 200 years old, we contend that this building represents a locally important building, and sensitive renovation into a small dwelling would prevent it from eroding and falling down, and that's what will eventually happen without intervention. This conversion could be very beneficial to the local area and improve the local appearance of the area. Beyond its historical significance, this conversion would serve a practical need. The applicant is a dedicated caregiver to her husband, and she currently resides in an unsuitable dwelling which is 2-story and incapable of conversion. The proposed flat level accommodation would significantly improve their quality of life, allowing for easier daily living and closer proximity to family and medical facilities. Medical need has been provided by a GP and has demonstrated that the applicant's husband is living with a serious and life-limiting condition and has intensive needs. The applicant's husband was born on this site in 1946, and they continued to live there right up until the 1980s. Whilst no requirement is necessary to provide need, since the application is for the renovation of a locally important building as permitted under policy, we felt that making the personal circumstances of the applicant and her husband was necessary to provide additional context and further reasoning as genuine hardship is being experienced by them. Further to this, there are numerous precedents where barn conversions under this policy were approved based on less compelling evidence than we have presented today. Additionally, the historical significance and specific circumstances of this case further strengthen the merits of this proposal. The proposal as submitted therefore meets the SPPS and PPS 21, and we feel it overcomes the suggested refusal reasons based on policy CTY 1, CTY 4, and consequently a refusal reason based on CTY 6 personal circumstances would be null and void, given that no justification for need is necessary when proposing a viable conversion proposal, which meets the criteria in CTY 4. We urge you to grant this application and allow this historically significant building to find new life as a home for a local resident and enable her to care for her husband in suitable surroundings on a single level accommodation and closer to the support network of family living nearby. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, John, for your presentation. Do any members have any questions for John? No? Anybody online? Oh, yeah. Alderman Kerrigan, go ahead there.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in. And it was just touching briefly on what Mr. Corey had stated there. Just seeking clarification, I was looking up my maps again, and I got that every house on the 1900 to 1907, but as John making reference said that it's older again. As I say, I didn't go back any further than that, but he's making reference that the site could be potentially 200 years old, and this would be the last remaining. From my map image of the 1900 1907, it seems to fit exactly on the footprint. This last remaining building here seems to sit exactly on the footprint of the old Every House site that was there. So it's in regards to the age of the site, and it would be locally important as far from my view on it. There you have Every Wood there beside it, and you have close to Messwood and that, and in that region, and it's just the case of touching on that. My view is that it all impinges on the CTY4 in regards to is it locally important or not, and I was going to touch then on the base. I was going to ask him there in regards to the health concerns, but I think he, as Mr. Carr's already touched, if it's accepted in CTY4, we don't have to go into any further onto CTY6. But I'll ask that question again onto the agent, because or onto the planner when it gets to it, because it seems to be a modest conversion. I know it's only outlined, but the plan that's in there, John, the plan that's in there is a modest sort of single-story building, and kind of keeping with the existing small building that remains on the site. Just as views on that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Keith. John, would you like to answer Alderman Kerrigan's questions? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, and thanks for the question, Alderman. The proposed design of the we basically provided an illustrative layout, and it does sort of keep a sensitive design, but it was to have that one level access for the applicant, so that it would be wheelchair friendly, it would be lifetime accessible, and that was the reasoning for that. And as you did touch upon as well, Alderman, it is an outline application. We did provide those just as an illustrative example, but we would envisage that a full scheme, if we got through to the full stage of reserve matters, we could demonstrate something showing lots of very nice architectural features. It would improve the overall appearance of the area, and it would be very, very subtle and very sensitive in relation to the footprint that's there currently.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, Keith. Anybody else want to come in? No, well, thank you, John. Anyway, we're going to move on to questions for the officer. Is any members got any questions for Laura? Okay, officers. Okay, members. Sorry, there's no questions, obviously, so I'm going to move on.
Chair, just very briefly, apologies. Couldn't get it typed in quick enough. Sorry.
All right, Keith. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. No, just following on from the question, Laura, just seeking confirmation that if CTY 4 is accepted, that it is locally important and locally significant, just seeking the clarification, will that ultimately eliminate the CTY 6 in regards to the hardship concerns and in regards to the medical concerns? Just seeking that clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Well, Laura.
Yes, if it was accepted under CTY4 and the SPPS, there would be no requirement to demonstrate personal domestic circumstances under CTY6.
Thank you. That's very clear, Alderman Kerrigan. Any follow-up, Keith?
No, I can make a proposal if you want, Chair.
Okay, just give me a second there, Alderman Kerrigan. Well, there's no more questions for the officer, so obviously there's a recommendation there to refuse, but you want to come in, Keith, and make your proposal, if you would kindly do it on the usual format, please. Thank you.
On the format, yes, Chair. And in regards to, Chair, I am going to start in regards to the second refusal reason, which is in regards to CTY4 of PPS 21, because I feel that this application balances on this. Because then, as Laura has confirmed, if CTY4 can be approved, it ultimately eliminates CTY6, and if CTY4 is approved, it eliminates the objection under CTY1. So CTY4 is the reason, in my view on it here, and I would be minded that it is stated in the planner's report that it is not a locally important or significant building, and I would argue the case that it is. I have looked at the Ordnance Survey County Series, edition 3, 1900 and 1907, stating that this is part of every house, and it is on the footprint of every house, and is the last remaining building. So I would be minded that it does have that local significance, and with every woodland there in regards to it, so it is locally significant. I would make reference that we have previously within the Faughan DEA deemed something that was locally significant and granted planning permission, which was an old forge, and the building itself was not very large and was not in a large footprint, but it was deemed as locally significant. So I feel that there is precedent for that. So I feel that although there's very little of every house remaining, this is the last remaining section of it. So I do feel that it is locally important, and therefore I feel that it does adhere to the policy in CTY4, and as a result of that, it will ultimately accept the CTY1, so therefore there's no longer a refusal reason there, and when CTY4 is accepted, there will be no need for a refusal reason under CTY6. So I feel that we should overturn the officer's recommendation to refuse on that basis. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan, and again, thank you for the extensive and to that proposition. I'm going to pass on to Councillor Jackson. I think you want to come in.
No, I'm happy to second the proposal, and I think it's pretty clear, pretty obvious that Alderman Kerrigan got an ordnance survey map from the 1800s for Christmas.
Thank you, Christopher. So, Laura, let's proposal, not an application put forward. Thank you.
Okay, it's a proposal not to accept the officer's recommendation for item 6. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Aye.
Okay.
For.
Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For Mara.
Okay. Alderman McMorris as apologies. Councillor Jason Barr as apologies. Councillor John Boyle.
Against.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sean Fleming. Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher is gone. Councillor Christopher Jackson. Yes, thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard. Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade is apologies. Councillor Rory McHugh. Okay. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Against.
Okay. Councillor Patrick Murphy. Okay. And Councillor Grayson Ellis. Okay. That's 2 against and 4.
Members, that's carried, that proposal. So that's, thank you for that one, and thank you for coming online, John, and the speakers. Members, it's now 9 minutes to 6. And we've got 2 applications to go. In your hands, if you want to go, sorry. Go ahead, Christopher.
Just given that, and I'm assuming from the running order that there's only one application left that has a speaker. So I would suggest that, given that so many people have sat through this, that we get that over the way and then can be resumed tomorrow.
I would endorse that.
Okay, members, we'll carry on with that application. I'm content as well. That's number 7, and that is LA 11 2022 0424. Recommendation to refuse, and that is the works at Brunswick Movie Bowl, Brunswick Lane, Pennyburn Street, Derry. That's Malagi sticking that. Thank you, Malagi.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7, L11 220424. F is a full application for a proposed extension to existing cinema complex to provide indoor mini golf and games arcade and associated site works at Brunswick Movie Bowl, Pennyburn, and our recommendation today is to refuse. The application site is located within the established Brunswick Movie Bowl, which is a leisure complex within Pennyburn Industrial Estate, just outside the central area as defined in the Derry Area Plan. The application site is outlined in red. It includes part of the existing building as well as an area within the former Ernst complex, which lies to the east of the movie bowl. So just to give you an idea in terms of context, the part of the area to be developed is a area of brownfield area to the east of the existing Brunswick complex, which can be accessed off Pennyburn Pass, and also includes partial areas of existing car park and partial areas of the existing building. The proposed floor plans, as shown here on screen, includes a previous approval that was before committee a number of years ago, which related to an extension to provide 2 new cinema areas, and that's shown kind of north of the existing complex here, and it's outlined on the cursor. And it's outlined in red. There's 2 elements to the proposed development. In the report, we've referred them as the western extension, which is to provide a lobby games arcade accessing off the existing car park in Brunswick. And the other areas that we've referred to as the eastern extension is to provide a mini golf area to be accessed through the approved extended cinema area. And there's also a new area of car parking to the east of the site and what would have been formerly part of the Ernst complex. The proposed elevations, as I set out in the attached image here, so you can see the the proposed elevation looking towards the eastern extension from the Iron site, and this second image is looking towards the western extension from the existing car park. And this would be looking back towards, from the north, looking back towards the site. And you can see the site elevation of the proposed mini golf area, as well as the elevation of the proposed games arcade area. I suppose photographs are sometimes easier to show in the plans, so that this would be the approximate location of the proposed western extension, and the additional sunlight area would just be to the north of that site. And this is the proposed location of the eastern extension. As I say, it was formerly part of the Iron site, and there was previously buildings associated with Iron on that part of the site. So the policy context is outlined in the case officer report, including includes the area plan, the SPPS, PPS2, PPS3, PPS6 and PPS15. We consulted a number of bodies in relation to the application. These included DFA Roads, who have no objection. Their proposal is acceptable, subject to conditions. We consulted DFA Rivers. They've indicated that the site is in a potential area of inundation emanating from the Craigan upper and lower reservoirs. They've indicated it's not been demonstrated to Rivers that the condition management and maintenance of the regime of the reservoirs is appropriate to provide sufficient assurance regarding reservoir safety. And in terms of flood risk, they've indicated that there's unacceptable combination of depth of velocity for the western extension proposed on this development. We've consulted NA Water. They've raised issues in relation to the receiving foul sewage network in terms of capacity. They've indicated issues in relation to potential pollution to the aquatic environment if there was unauthorized discharges to any of our nearby water courses. Such they've recommended that the applicant should submit a wastewater impact assessment and engage with NA Water to find a suitable engineering solution in terms of foul sewage and dealing with the capacity issues. In terms of environmental health, they have no objections subject to standard contamination conditions. On foot of the issues raised by NA Water, we've consulted the NA Water Management Unit, who have considered the impacts on the water environment, and they've acknowledged that there is a potential to adversely affect surface water environment. However, they have indicated that a suitable negative condition could be applied, that the required no development should take place until the applicant agrees a method of sewage disposal with NA Water. As such, and given the connections with the potential impacts on water courses and the status of some of our water courses in the northwest and Derry location, we've also consulted Shared Environmental Services. They've indicated that they had to carry out an appropriate assessment under the habitats regulations. They've concluded, after considering all the relevant issues, that the project would not have an adverse effect on the integrity of any European site. And in reaching this conclusion, they took into account no potential mitigation measures, and in particular the mitigation measures suggested by Water Management Unit, and recommended any, if the council was minded to approve it, that an appropriate condition as suggested by Water Management Unit should be attached. We've consulted Environment Division, both historic buildings and monuments. Historic buildings are satisfied that there would be no impacts on proposed nearby listed buildings, such as Pennyburn Chapel, given the distance and separation distance and the relationship. Historic monuments have previously assessed and carried out archaeological investigations under an application under 2008, and they believe that there's no issues and they're content with the proposal is satisfactory in accordance with SPPS and PPS 6. So officers have considered a number of issues relating to the application. In terms of the design of the proposal, it's very much in keeping with what we have already in the bowling alley. They're in terms of material, scale, size. So officers concluded that the proposal is acceptable in accordance with policy BE1 of the area plan. In terms of a statement of need, the SPPS requires a statement of need in relation to not town centre uses that are located outside the town centre, leisure use for that bracket. The agent acting on behalf of the applicant put in a number of points for consideration in their statement of need. These include the demand for social, family, recreational space. They believe within the area, the deficit of suitable and/or recreational spaces to provide activity across all generations of a family. They've also taken into account sequential considerations. This says that the case is put forward that the proposal would be economically viable would not be economically viable to develop in isolation, and therefore has to be developed in conjunction with an existing offer, such as the leisure use at the Brunswick Super Bowl. The statement advises that this is due to the need for strong footfall and the need for land or sufficient area to provide required floor space and associated car parking. The statement contends that such conditions do not exist within the central area of the city as defined in the area plan. And the third point made was in terms of demographics in the large local catchment area, with a significant portion of families and younger people within Derry and Donegal area. So officers have considered each of these points and would conclude and agree with the nature of the arguments put forward in terms of a statement of need. And although the site is outside the central area or the town centre as such in the Derry area plan, we have given width particularly the issue in terms of the sequential considerations and the viability of developing such a proposal in isolation, and the sort of the dearth of such leisure offers within the city centre who could provide similar circumstances. In terms of traffic and movement, roads have no issues. There's additional car parking proposed. There's no issues in terms of access, if any. So officers content that has been considered adequately by the applicant. We've also considered amenity and compatibility. In terms of compatibility, it's within a mixed use area. There's already an established leisure use. You have other sort of commercial and storage type uses within Pennyburn industrial estate. You have some residential uses which are adjoining the site, and on this particular site we've one property at Old Mill Court which lies adjacent to the car park area. However, we don't think that the car parking will have an adverse impact on that particular property, nor will overall use have any adverse impact in terms of the relationship with the other properties within the Pennyburn Pass area. So, environmental health have no objections, and so on balance, officers are content that the proposal is adequate in terms of amenity and compatibility with existing and nearby land uses. As we've already touched upon, the archaeological built heritage issues, so there is no issues as such, and it complies fully with the relevant Derry area plan and PPS 6 policies, and the relevant statutory bodies have supported that conclusion. As I say, NI Water have raised concerns about potential pollution. We've sought the views of Water Management Unit, and they're content, subject to an appropriate and negative condition that requires the applicant to agree a method of sewage prior to commencement of development, that any such potential problems can be avoided completely. So it fixes the PPS 15 in terms of flooding. As indicated, that rivers have acknowledged and advised us in their consultation response that the site is within the reservoir inundation area. They have again indicated that the condition management and maintenance regime of the Craig Reservoir has not been demonstrated to them, and that it is appropriate to provide sufficient assurance regarding reservoir safety. And this is a requirement under policy FLD 5. They have carried an assessment of flood risk at the site. They have indicated that there's, given the size of the site, that there's a different hazard written relating to the different elements of the proposal. So, sorry. The hazard written for the eastern development, which is the proposed mini golf area, is within a low hazard area, whilst the hazard written for the western games arcade area would be within a high hazard area. And again, within FLD 5, if you're within a high hazard area and there's an unacceptable combination of depth velocity, the FLD 5 is directing you to recommend refusal. We've also received a flood assessment, which just confirms the same conclusions of the FA rivers in terms of the hazard ratings. So we've looked at both aspects and weighed up, the impacts in terms of the reservoir, both on the eastern extension and on the western extension. With respect to the eastern extension, we've taken a number of factors into account. These include the previous use and buildings on the site. There was buildings on the site as part of the Ernst development. This is within a low hazard rating area. And there is planning history. There's also plan history relating to the proposed extension to this cinema, which is also within a low hazard rating area. Taking these into account, we don't think that the second element of FLD 5 can be applied in respect of the eastern extension. And furthermore, if it was just the eastern extension, there's provision within FLD 5 that a replacement building, that the first element in relation to the management regime can also be set aside. So if it was just the eastern extension isolation, the proposal would be in compliance with FLD 5. However, the western extension isn't within the low hazard area, it's within the high hazard area, so that doesn't meet that second element of FLD 5 in terms of the depth and velocity. And also, there's been no formal resolution or sign off in respect of council assuming formal responsibility for the management of the reservoir, and therefore, in reading the policy in FLD 5 and the requirements of FLD 5, the western extension doesn't comply with both parts of FLD 5. And as I say, the SES have carried a stage 2 assessment, which we're content with. So jump to the conclusion and recommendation, and although most aspects of the proposal are positive and meet policy requirements, our recommendation comes down to a single issue in relation to FLD 5, and in particular the western extension proposed, and its non-compliance in our view with FLD 5 in terms of the management regime, and also in terms of the hazard rating and the unacceptable depth and velocity that may result from a flood event from a reservoir. So having considered all material planning considerations, including the plan history, policy consultation responses, in this case, there's a typo where there is no third-party representations, but officers consider that the proposal cannot satisfy the policy requirements of FLD 5 of PPS 15 and recommend refusal on that basis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malachy, for the presentation. Two speakers. Well, we have Mr. Mark McIver, who is online. Mr. Simpson, is he on season? So, Mark, I'm not too sure. You've got 5 minutes between these, but is it using the speaking, or will it be splitting the speaking time? You want to confirm?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. It'll be myself taking the speaking rights today, if that's okay.
That's fine, Mark. Well, as you know, you've got 5 minutes to present, so you can carry on there. Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present information at today's meeting. As stated by Malachy, the proposal is seeking permission for an indoor mini golf and games arcade. If approved, this proposal will expand an established leisure facility, a locally owned business that has operated continuously from the application site since 1990. The bowling alley, or Brunswick Movie Bowl, as it's commonly known, provides a first-class leisure offering that regularly attracts visitors from across Derry and Donegal. The importance of this facility cannot be underestimated, both in terms of its economic contribution to the city, but also for its ability to deliver social cohesion. The bowling alley and cinema complex is a leisure attraction enjoyed by people of all ages, young and old, families, friends, and work colleagues, and it attracts thousands of weekly visitors. Since opening in 1990, the owners have successfully weathered several economic downturns and many challenging economic conditions, including the COVID pandemic, which has had a devastating impact on the hospitality and leisure industry. There also exists external threats, such as competition from other leisure attractions located outside of the city. It's therefore vital that this local business is not taken for granted, and that we lend support to their efforts to evolve, grow, and enhance their leisure offering to ensure that it continues to perform for the Northwest. Moving on to the assessment of the planning application, only a single reason for refusal stands in the way of this exciting development opportunity. That reason for refusal relates to policy FLD 5 of PPS 15, and as is widely known here today, is outside of the applicant's gift to deliver. We have worked with the planning officers and statutory consultees over the past year to address all of their concerns with this proposal. All issues and concerns, notwithstanding policy FLD 5, have been addressed or can be mitigated by way of a condition. We know from Planning Committee's deliberation of other recent planning applications on the Strand Road, also affected by policy FLD 5, that this Planning Committee has clearly stated their position with respect to the reservoir issue and the local council's obligation to assume a management role. We have taken these planning decisions into consideration, and the fact that we can do no more with respect to policy FLD 5 when we made the request to bring this planning application forward for determination. We also learned during our discussion with DFI Rivers and our subsequent meetings with planning officers that the area on the DFI mapping that presents problems for the planning officers lending their support is in fact only a very small proportion of the overall application site, and only a small proportion of that western extension. It is acknowledged by DFI and planners that the risk at the site generally is low, and only a very small section of the proposed extension, which is currently used as car parking and therefore is still in regular use, is deemed to be of higher risk to vulnerable groups. Incidentally, it must be acknowledged that the risk does not disappear should planning permission be refused. The site will continue to attract thousands of visitors weekly, and it is our opinion that the proposed extension, if approved and built out, will help to mitigate the risk and make it safer for vulnerable groups. This is because any extension built on the western lands will sit higher than the existing car park. So in conclusion, we understand that policy FLD5 presents planning officers from lending their support to the proposal. However, the risk has been demonstrated to be minimal, and the proposed extension may even make the affected area of car parking safer. When we consider the applicant's exemplary track record at this site over the past 24 years, its important contribution both economically and socially, as well as the mitigating circumstances presented to you today, we request that Planning Committee lends support to this local business and approves this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that presentation. I'm going to ask if any of our members wish to ask you any questions on that. Yes, sir. Councillor Jackson, go ahead, sir.
Oh, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Mark. Mark, I'm not going to ask you any questions in relation to the refusal reasons because it's been well rehearsed at this committee, but it's very clear that the FLD5 and issues around it are completely outside of the applicant's control. But there's through your piece there, you've referenced a few times in relation to the economic value that the overall complex brings to the city and district. And specifically in relation to this application, how many jobs is it estimated that this application would provide if it was approved today? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Mark, do you want to come on maybe on that? Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. I think to answer that, I think we need to consider direct and indirect jobs, both in terms of people employed directly on site, employment during construction, and then in addition to that, the additional local investment through relationships with other businesses where you're buying products. But the direct impact or the direct uplift in employment, we estimate to be 35 part-time and full-time positions. We can't add to that because I'm not aware of the contractor and what they would apportion. So we can only estimate what the applicant has assumed based on the uplift.
Okay, Mark, thank you for that. Councillor Eunice, oh, you're okay. All right, thank you. There's no more members indicating to come on. Any questions for the officer? Alderman Hussey.
Thank you. Basically, the rationale is this flooding issue with regard to the reservoirs. Is the officer aware that in the past, Planning Committee is aware also of council's own arrangements reference reservoir management, which have overruled. In fact, basically, Planning Committee has said they're satisfied that rationale for refusal is no longer valid. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. I didn't get a question there, but more of a comment. Is it, do you want? No, okay, thank you. No further questions for Malachy. So, members, it's over to you. There's a recommendation there, and it's for refusal. Councillor Jackson, do you want to come on there? I think, like everybody, I've canvassed everybody, so it's, if you want to come on that, yeah, thank you.
No, on that, because I know there's been reference to previous applications. FLD5 has been about, I can remember quite a lot of deliberation in relation to FLD5 going back years, and it's a topic of deep frustration. I think the committee's made its views very clear. Council have made our views very clear, and even whenever we see this application and we're assessing it against the FLD5, the area that's deemed higher risk is a very small section of this application. It's a lobby. I think and in considering that, and in considering its current use, you can see how it could actually offer protection. But whenever, I'm going to say the factors, the differential between the western section and the eastern section and the different risks posed, we were actually advised by a representative from DFI Rivers at this committee that when council carry out the necessary work on land that we own, and we've made a firm commitment that we will carry out the necessary work, that there is no red zone, or the higher risk or the constraints that are contained within FLD 5 won't exist. So this is something that we've alluded to before, that we've made as a council a firm commitment that we're going to carry out the work, and it is within our control. So with that in mind, I am proposing that we set aside FLD 5, given that we've firmly committed that we're going to do the work. We've been advised from DFI Rivers, once that's done, FLD 5 will no longer be an issue. So I'm proposing that we set aside FLD 5 and we approve the application that's in front of us today. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Alderman Hussey.
And to second.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey.
Chair.
Yes, Councillor Boyd.
Yes, Chair, I was trying to come on there a wee while ago. I know it's difficult today with the WebEx, etc. Chair, just to confirm that I completely agree with everything that Councillor Jackson has just said. I think it would be important to bear in mind the views of this planning committee over the last while now in relation to FLD 5. We are all conscious, we all have the knowledge, we all know that this council is committed to dealing with the concerns in relation to flood inundation or potential flood inundation from the reservoir. I have every full expectation that that will happen, and that will happen in the coming months. I see no benefit in delaying this particular application until such a time as we get that organised, because it will happen, as already pointed out. Even in relation to this particular application, the threat and the risk in terms of flooding is a minimal part of the proposed development. And not only that, I think we have to recognise that this is a very important part of the leisure infrastructure in the city, aside from that's provided by this council. And I think we should always be welcoming private businesses who want to come in and provide this sort of leisure activity for people. Let's face it, this is a very family friendly a business. It's wet weather. And we get a lot of that around here, so it's an indoor facility that's being provided here, and evidently then there's a knock-on effect with locally bound tourism, I would have suggested as well. So fully supportive, Chair, of the proposal that we set aside FLD 5 on this occasion. It is a source of great frustration. I do look forward to the day when we don't actually have applications coming in front of this committee because of this one particular issue. And as I said, as a member of another committee of this council, the Environment and Regeneration Committee, I'm well informed, and I'm sure others are too, as to the progress that we're making in relation to agreements around the adequate management of the reservoir when it comes, eventually does come under council control. So that's my tuppence worth on it, Chair. Fully supportive of the recommendation to set that aside and to approve this one today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle, and thank you to Councillor Jackson. Alderman Hussey, I fully agree with their comments, and on that, I'll ask more. Oh, sorry. Only invite in Mr. Full.
Yeah, members, I just want to, conscious obviously that this is the setting aside of a policy, and there's an issue here in and around a statutory consultee, so I want to make sure we're entirely on message in terms of the reasons for setting aside this policy. Obviously, as things stand here today, the lease taking over lease and reservoir manager is not in place. So the position is the direction of travel of council and the firm understanding that this is something which it is expected will take place in the near future rather than something which is currently in place today.
Chair, if I could just come in, I think the city solicitor has basically interpreted what I was saying, and I'm fairly sure everybody in the room there understands that to be the case as well. So if we want to put that into the record, absolutely, then by all means. Evidently as well, Chair, and I forgot to mention, but you know, the concerns of Northern Ireland Water will probably need to be addressed as things as this progresses as well in terms of foul and sewage, etc. And we're probably going to need some conditioning on that.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Thank you, Dave, for the clarification. On that note, I'm going to ask Murray to take the vote on the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is item 7, as proposal not to accept the officer's recommendation. Alderman Derek Hussey.
For.
Okay. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For, Maura.
Okay. Alderman McMorris is apologies. Councillor Jason Barr is apologies. Councillor John Boyle.
For.
Okay. Councillor Sean Fleming.
Ah.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher is gone. Councillor Christopher Jackson. Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard. Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade was apologies. Councillor Rory McHugh. Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick Murphy. Thank you. And Councillor Grace Neelis. Thank you. It's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, Maura, and that is unanimous, members. On that note, I'm going to adjourn now. I'm going to ask to reconvene tomorrow and we can finish off the rest of the agenda. Thank you, members, again. Thank you to officers and members of the public who've come here today. Okay, folks.
Thank you, Planning Committee.